At his 25-year class reunion, a man named Clayton parked a 2012 Camry with 190,000 miles on it between a leased Tahoe and a financed BMW. For 1 second, he felt it, that small flinch, the one that says, "You should have driven something nicer tonight." Then he walked inside. By the end of the night, the parking lot had told the truth before anyone said a word. The man with the shiniest car out there was 3 payments behind on it and dodging a phone call from the dealership. And Clayton, in the oldest car in the lot, was the only person in that room who owed nothing to anyone. The car in your driveway tells people more about your money than your salary ever will. The person still driving the same paid-off sedan after 10 years looks, to everyone passing, like they couldn't afford better. A lot of the time, they are the one on the street who actually could and quietly decided the new one wasn't worth what it really costs. What you refuse to replace says more about your money than what you earn. This isn't about hating nice cars. A new car is sometimes exactly the right move, and we'll get to win. This is about the quiet math sitting underneath the badge, and the specific reason the wealthiest person you know is so often driving the most forgettable car on the block. If you're ready to stop making excuses and start doing the math, subscribe and like this video. It costs nothing, and it tells me to keep making these. Chapter 1. What your driveway says about you. A driveway is a vote. People glance at the car and decide in about 4 seconds how you're doing. A new SUV says he's winning. A 10-year-old sedan says he's stuck. That snap read feels obvious. It is also wrong about half the time, and the half it gets wrong is the half worth understanding. Here's the problem with reading cars. A car says one of 2 completely different things, and from the outside they look identical. One says, "I have money." The other says, "I have payments." The shiny grille in the next lane could be a man who paid cash from a portfolio, or a man who is 1 missed paycheck from a repossession. You cannot tell. Neither can your neighbor. Neither can the coworker who teased you about your old Camry. That gap between looking like money and being money is the entire game. The badge on the hood doesn't measure wealth, it measures access to credit. Anyone with a pulse and a 600 credit score can drive off in $50,000 of car this afternoon. The bank, not the buyer, owns most of what's gleaming in that lot. Clayton's Camry read as "couldn't afford better." Trent, his old classmate, rolled in on a leased Tahoe that read as "doing great." The truth ran the opposite direction, and the people in that parking lot had it exactly backwards. They almost always do. The car is a billboard, and most people rent the billboard to advertise a wealth they don't have yet. Chapter 2. The Day 1 Cliff Every New Car Falls Off. Drive a new car off the lot and it starts losing value before you've merged into traffic. As much as 10% the moment you pull away and about 20% by the end of the first year. Roughly 40% gone in 3 years. Half to 60% gone in 5. That is not a worst case. That is the ordinary expected schedule, and every dealer knows it the moment they hand you the keys. Put real numbers on it. The average new car in America now costs around $48,000. 20% of that is roughly $10,000, and it evaporates in the first year. Not spent on gas, not spent on repairs, just gone, the way water is gone after you pour it out. That $10,000 is, for most households, the single largest check they will write all year that buys them absolutely nothing. So why does anyone do this twice? Because the dealership never shows you the cliff. They show you the monthly payment because the payment is small and the cliff is enormous, and the whole sales floor is built to keep your eyes on the small number. $400 a month sounds like a phone bill. It does not sound like the $45,000 in total cost and lost value it actually represents over the life of the loan. Make it concrete. A $48,000 SUV bought new is worth somewhere around $24,000 at the 5-year mark in ordinary condition. half of it gone on a clock while you made every payment on time and washed it on weekends. Trade it then for another new one and you start the climb down all over again from the top of the cliff on purpose. This is the part that matters for the mirror. The keeper, the person who buys once and holds, falls off that cliff exactly one time and then never again. The upgrader falls off it every 3 to 5 years on a loop for life. Same income, same job, same neighborhood. One of them is paying full price to ride the depreciation curve over and over. The other got off the ride and let his car finish falling, so the cheap, flat years on the far side belonged to him. Chapter 3. The Years of No Payment Nobody Counts. The average new car payment in this country is now around $745 a month. Sit with that. Not a luxury payment, the average one. For a lot of working households, it is the second biggest bill they have, right behind the roof over their head. Here's the trap, and almost nobody names it. When you trade your car every 3 to 5 years, you never finish paying. You roll the old loan into the new one, sign again, and the payment simply continues. It stops being a loan you pay off and becomes a subscription, a perpetual $745 monthly charge for the privilege of always driving something newish. You will pay it in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. It never ends because you never let it. Now watch the keeper. Clayton financed his Camry, paid it off in 5 years, and then kept driving it. Year 6, no payment. Year 7, no payment. He's now in year 12, still no payment. Those payment-free years are the part of the math nobody counts, because nothing happens. There's no event, no purchase, no smell of a new interior. There is just $745 a month that quietly does not leave his account. Invisible income looks like nothing. That's why it's invisible. The upgrader feels productive every time he signs for a fresh set of keys. The keeper feels like nothing is happening at all. And the one where nothing is happening is the one quietly getting rich. Chapter 4. What the keeper does with the difference. Run the keeper's math honestly and keep it fair. We'll compare a car to a car over the same stretch of years, not a 5-year car against a 30-year life. Rigged math is how you lose people, and it should be. Take that $745 a month freed up in the payment-free years and put it somewhere boring, not a hot stock, a low-cost total market index fund, the kind that simply owns a slice of the whole American market and has returned somewhere around 7% a year after inflation across decades. That 7% isn't magic, and it isn't a guess off a billboard. It's the long-run return of the businesses you already buy from, paid back to the people who own the shares. 5 payment-free years of investing $745 a month at that return comes out to roughly $53,000 from one car, from the simple act of not trading it in. Stretch that across a driving life where the keeper is payment-free maybe half the years instead of paying forever, and the gap compounds past $250,000. Same salary as the guy in the new Tahoe. The only difference is which one of them kept feeding the dealership. Clayton never felt rich doing this. That's the whole disguise. It felt like nothing month after month, a number that simply didn't leave his account while everyone around him signed new contracts and felt like they were getting somewhere. And nothing, quietly compounded for 20 years, is exactly how the boring ones end up ahead of the loud ones. Look at the other side of the ledger too, because it's just as real. A man who carries that $745 payment from age 30 to age 60 hands the dealers and the banks more than $260,000 across those 30 years and ends with a car worth a fraction of the last loan. He didn't buy 30 years of cars. He rented a feeling 30 years in a row and has the depreciation to show for it. That is the whole quiet engine. Not a side hustle, not a raise, just the refusal to re-sign and the discipline to send the difference somewhere it grows instead of somewhere it rusts. The keeper and the upgrader earn the same paycheck. They just point the same $745 in opposite directions, and 30 years later, one of them is free and the other one is still signing. Chapter 5.
The badge nobody actually needs. Let's be fair to the nice car, because this channel doesn't deal in cheap shots. A BMW genuinely handles better than a Camry. A new truck rides quieter and stops shorter than a 10-year-old one. The engineering is real. That was never the argument. The argument is cost. The badge isn't priced on how it drives, it's priced on what it signals, and the signal is the most expensive part. You are not paying $10,000 extra for better cornering. You're paying it for the 4-second read in the parking lot, the glance from a stranger you will never see again. That feeling lasts about as long as the new car's smell, which is to say, a few months, and then it's just your car, and the payment is still there. And the keeper is not always in a Camry. There's a guy 2 streets over running a Silverado with 220,000 miles on it, changes his own oil, and is quietly worth more than anyone on the block. Reliable and held is reliable and held, foreign or domestic. The brand on the tailgate is not the point. The point is whether it's paid for and whether you're done buying it. If that's you, subscribe and like this video. It's free. Drop a comment telling me the one thing you're going to change about your money this week.
Chapter 6. Repair versus replace. Run the real number. The honest objection lives in the comments, and it's a fair one. Old cars break. Sometimes they strand you. Nobody is pretending a 190,000-mile Camry is free to keep. So let's run the actual number instead of guessing with our feelings. A new car payment of $745 a month is $8,940 a year, every year, before you count the depreciation you're also eating. Against that, what does a year of repairs on a well-kept older car cost? A set of tires, brakes, a battery, fluids, maybe an alternator. Call it a rough year at $2,500. That rough year is still less than a third of what the payment alone would run you. The math is not close. The rule is simple. As long as a year of repairs costs less than a year of payments plus depreciation, you keep the car. When repairs in a year start to rival the car's whole value and it's leaving you stranded, then you replace it, not before. Most people replace a car years too early while it has 100,000 good miles left because a rattle annoyed them or a coworker said something. And maintenance isn't a cost here, it's the investment that keeps the engine running. Oil on schedule, the timing belt when it's due, fluids before they fail. Spend the few hundred that lets a good car run to 250,000 miles, and you've bought yourself years of that no-payment freedom.
Chapter 7. The lease ad built for your ego. Turn on a football game and you'll see it. $399 a month, well-qualified lessees, for a limited time. The ad is a small, glossy doorway, and it's engineered with real care to walk you into a room you never leave. Understand what a lease actually is. You pay for the steepest part of the depreciation cliff, the first few years, the worst years, and then you hand the car back and own nothing. Then they walk you to the next one and you sign again. It is a payment with no finish line by design. The whole point from the dealer's side is that you never escape the monthly charge because the monthly charge is the product. The car is just the bait. Run the lease number and it gets worse. A 36-month lease at $399 a month is more than $14,000 handed over, and at the end, you own 0% of the car. Stack 3 of those back to back, and you've spent north of $43,000 across 9 years to have always been driving and never once owning. That same money, the loan paid off and then invested, is a down payment on a paid-for life. A lease feels light because the payment looks smaller than a loan, but you are renting the most expensive years of a car's life forever and walking away every 3 years with nothing to show but a folder of paperwork and a fresh contract. The industry would love for every driver in America to be in a permanent payment. A lease is how they get the disciplined people, the ones who'd never carry a balance on a credit card, to carry a forever balance on a car and feel responsible doing it. Set aside whether you can technically afford it. The real question is what it's quietly costing the version of you that retires.
Chapter 8. where upgrading is actually worth it. This is not a vow of poverty, and it's not a lecture about driving something miserable until it dies in a ditch. Sometimes the new car is the right call, and pretending otherwise is how you end up penny-wise and life poor. Buy the newer car when safety genuinely changes the equation. A growing family, long highway commutes, modern crash protection, and driver aids that an old car simply doesn't have. That's not ego, that's protecting people you love. Buy it when your current car has crossed the line, when the repairs in a year start to rival its value and it's stranding you on the way to work. Buy it when you need dead reliability for the job that feeds you, and you can pay cash without derailing your retirement. Plan or parking lot? That's the only question the upgrade has to answer. If a particular machine is the one thing that lights you up, buy it on purpose, with money you have, and call it what it is, a joy you chose. That's the middle way. Nobody should die with a giant account and no memories. The rule was never buy nice. The rule is buy it with cash you actually have, for a reason that's yours, not to answer a question the driveway asked you. The upgrade that comes from a plan is freedom. The upgrade that comes from a glance in a parking lot is a leash.
Chapter 9. Who you're really buying the new one for. Here's the question that cuts. When you picture yourself in the new car, who's watching? Be honest. It's almost never you alone on an empty road enjoying the steering. It's the people at the light, the classmates in the reunion lot, the co-worker who'll see it in the parking garage Monday. Doug in Clayton's office ribbed him about the Camry for years. Still driving the grandpa car. When are you going to upgrade? Doug drove a new leased truck and felt good about it every single morning. What Doug never mentioned was the payment, the balance, the quiet pressure of a number due on the first. The truck was a costume he wore for an audience, and Clayton was supposed to be part of that audience. That's the trap underneath all of it. You're not buying the car for the drive. You're buying it for strangers who forget you in 8 seconds, and for 1 or 2 people you're secretly trying to impress who aren't keeping score the way you think they are. You are spending years of future freedom to win a glance that nobody even remembers giving. The quietly wealthy made one decision the rest of the street hasn't. They stopped performing for that audience. They let the parking lot think whatever it wants, and they kept the money.
Chapter 10. The Handoff. Here's how it ends for Clayton, and it's the part the parking lot never sees. His daughter, Maya, turned 18 and headed to college, and he handed her the keys to the Camry. 210,000 miles by then, paid off for years, still starting on the first turn every cold morning. Her first car, and she owns it outright, debt-free, before she's taken a single exam. Trent, the classmate in the leased Tahoe, was at that point rolling negative equity from one lease into the next, signing for number 4. He has a nicer car in the driveway every 3 years. He has nothing to hand anyone. You cannot hand down a payment. You cannot pass a lease to your kid. All the upgrader builds is a longer chain of contracts, and when it's time to give something to the next person, his hands are empty. That's the quiet freedom hiding inside the boring old car. It isn't the sedan itself. It's that the thing was finished, fully owned, and free to become something else. A gift, a head start. A car that votes for nobody and owes nobody and starts every single morning. The flinch Clayton felt in that parking lot was the cost of looking right for 4 seconds. The Camry in Maya's name was the reward for being right for 20 years.
So the next time the new car pulls up beside you at the light, gleaming, fresh plates, badge catching the sun, notice what you feel. If it's that small flinch, the one that says you're behind, look closer. You don't know if that car is money or payments. The driver might. He might not even know himself. What you do know is the price of both choices now. You know the badge costs the day one cliff, the forever payment, the $250,000 that could have been yours. And you know the quiet costs you a few teasing comments from the Dougs of the world and 4 seconds of looking like you couldn't afford better. The driveway was never the scoreboard.
the payment is. And the person who finished paying, who kept the boring car, who sent the difference somewhere it grows, is the one who already won, whether or not anyone in the parking lot ever claps. Boring is underrated.